You guys, she did it. She did it. By after day 3 of Lori Vallow's trial, she's facing charges for the conspiracy to commit homicide against Brandon Boudreaux. End of day 3, I was worried because up to that point, we had spent 3 days very much proving that Alex Cox had her Jeep and pulled the trigger. I think they wrapped that up in a tidy bow. Perfect. They still had to connect Lori to all of that for the conspiracy part. Without that connection, she walks. If Alex has been the one on trial, oh, hands down, poof, guilty verdict. So I entered day 4 going, okay, come on, Treena K, come on, pull it through. And she did it. Our gal did it. She's awesome. She's amazing. And here's how. Let's review days 4 and 5 of the trial. You may know the verdict already. I already do because life happens and we're running behind. But that's what we do. So let's talk about it. If you're new here, I'm Annette Lyon, USA Today best-selling author of the suspense novel Just One More and a whole bunch of other stuff. Also award-winning author, former editor, a whole bunch of other things. Here we discuss true crime often, but not always, where it intersects with religion. And then we have chocolate on the side because you gotta have something sweet in the middle of all the bitter. I have opinions. I rant. That's what we do here. We respect all faith traditions and those with no faith traditions. That includes my faith as well. And a quick reminder to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel and helps other people find this kind of content who would be interested in it. Ready? Let's go. All right. On day 4, Brandon Boudreaux was hoping to get justice once again. This time we had Detective Pillar on the stand again. This time for Lori to do her little pretend lawyering of cross-examination. Yeah, let's watch a couple of those clips because they're telling. This first clip is Lori again trying to make it sound nefarious that Detective Pillar and Brandon had a lot of communications over the past 5+ years. Of course, the reason behind that is Brandon is only one part of a very complicated case involving a whole bunch of other people, many other victims, including all of the 4 people that we know of who were offed by Lori and Melanie and Chad and Alex. And yeah, lovely. But of course, they weren't bringing all that stuff in. They couldn't. So they referred to the July 11th incident in Chandler, Arizona, and things like that. So that's the context for this particular clip.
Pillar, how often or how many times would you say that you have communicated with Brandon Boudreaux in the past 5.5 years?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to asked and answered as well as potential 404B issues.
So you'll recall that the 404B and 405, that is the code essentially for bringing in character witness information. So if Lori is trying to, if she goes too far into what happened to Charles or what happened in Idaho, she's opening the door for the state to bring in all of that. And so the jury would find out that she is a 4-time convicted murderer and everything. So this is Treena K objecting, saying, okay, if she's going to bring in that information, then we get to bring in it all. So that's the 404B and 405 objections.
I think she asked Mr. Boudreaux those questions. I'll allow it, but be aware of the issues, please, that you could be opening. Go ahead.
Multiple times. I have spoken with Mr. Boudreaux multiple times.
She's exhausting, right? But yeah, there's stuff. There's a lot going on, and deal, Lori.
So her financial gain if something were to happen to Brandon, is that correct?
That is correct.
So he also provided you with screenshots of information regarding Melanie that didn't have to do with finances. Is that also correct?
Your Honor, I'm going to object again and warn on 404A and 405.
Did you read those documents when they were sent to you?
I reviewed the documents that were sent to me, yes.
And did you include those in part of your investigation?
They are included in an investigation, yes.
Did you catch that? They're included in an investigation. She said, were they part of your investigation? Slight pause. And then he says they were included in an investigation. The indefinite article and pops up. Not the investigation referring to this one with Brandon, an investigation, which implies could have been a different one, which it was. So jury, were you listening? On this next one, she goes off into weird things where there's more objections, are argumentative, asked and answered. She's testifying again. Her snark is coming out again. Like it came out on day 3 with Detective Pillar many times. If you saw my last video, it gets really annoying. And then she also is kind of stupid enough to think that 2 does not mean multiple. More than one is multiple, Lori. Just if you haven't read a book, that's what that means. All right, let's listen to it.
Loud noise of the inconsistent evidence.
So you would consider that multiple people, is that correct?
But there are others within the report that acknowledge hearing the noise, yes.
Not in any report that I read, in a report that you read?
Object to testifying
Sustained.
and asked and answered and argumentative.
That's the objection sustained.
I love that one because Treena K, as she starts listing more and more possible objections. Judge Presky goes, yes, it's sustained. But it just goes to show you how Lori is pushing the envelope. She's not a lawyer. She's not acting remotely professional. And oh, it's maddening. Then we had, cutting out tons, obviously, but then we had Mr. Mueller. I'm forgetting what his position was, but he testified about gunshot residue that was found inside the Jeep. And once again, Lori's trying to poke holes unsuccessfully because she's like, well, they only found it in what, 2 or 3 spots? Wouldn't it be all over? And he's like, actually, the fact that it's present at all, that just means that they tested in a couple of spots. They didn't like test the entire interior of the Jeep. Gunshot residue was inside the Jeep. It does not degrade. It would go away if you wiped it off, but it doesn't degrade and is hard to see. And it was found in more than 1 spot. So deal, Lori, just deal.
That a gun may have been discharged in this vehicle. Is that your conclusion?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that your conclusion? I swear there are moments where it's like, yeah. And she had done a little bit of science, Googling something to learn that GSR, gunshot residue, is made up of 3 particles. Did not do enough consulting of Dr. Google to learn that you don't need to have all 3 for it to be gunshot residue. And she brought up in things like hairspray and fireworks that might contain 1 or 2 things. And I'm sorry, but hairspray does not contain stuff that would also be in gunshot residue. Maybe it did in a previous generation, but no. And then we had Hermosillo. Now, this was my reaction to Hermosillo when I saw him on the stand. Because I'm sorry, do you blame me, right? He is our hero from Idaho. He was part of the investigation from the moment Chandler police contacted, or Gilbert police, I guess at that point, Gilbert contacted Idaho looking for the Jeep, all the way through finding the children, all the way through all of this. He has been there every step of the way. And he is a good guy. He's a tough guy, and we love Hermosillo. He has no love for Lori, and I think she's scared of him. It was beautiful to see. He did not testify in the case about Charles's death. He did attend at least 1 day of court, and I think that was, of course, in honor of Charles and the other victims. So here they were talking about the Jeep itself when they were looking for the Jeep and the custom license plate.
Quint?
Yes, CP Quint.
At this time, when you are at this apartment complex on November 26th, is it your understanding that Lori Vallow is living at those Rock Creek townhomes?
That's correct.
She had moved up. Melanie and Alex, they all lived in the same apartment complex. And they kept bringing up the CP Quint, which I thought was interesting, that it was a personalized license plate. And I was trying to remember what the significance of that was. Apparently, that was a name that Alex liked to use, and he signed in at some of those shooting ranges with that name. Sometimes was just C Quint, and sometimes CP Quint. That was sort of its alter ego of Alex's. It was on his Ford F-150. That was not on the Jeep. That was Alex's own truck, which made you wonder, if he had a Ford F-150, why would he need to take a Jeep? But the Jeep allowed you to lie down in the back and aim and be hidden and all of that. And it's also not his vehicle. They thought that they were being smart, of course, but no. They did not find the Jeep initially, but here's his description of when they did find the Jeep and how that went down. And I think this is one of the first times I'm guessing, and Nadine mentioned this too, and I 100% agree. This may have been one of the first times that the jury went, wait, what? She sounds guilty. And this is tying her directly to the situation and thinking someone is acting odd. That's not normal.
I'm from the gym and looked over to my right and saw the Jeep parked outside of apartment 175.
What did you do when you saw it?
I had Erickson Tow Company seize the Jeep and tow it to our impound lot.
Is that an internal or external lot?
We have both external and internal, but we towed it and put it inside our impound lot. Inside.
Did you let the Gilbert Police Department know you had located and seized that Jeep?
Yes, ma'am, we did.
Did you attempt to contact Lori Vallow to let her know you took the Jeep?
We did several times that day. We made attempts to go over and knock on the door to let Miss Vallow know that we had her Jeep in case they wondered if it was stolen or impounded. And we were unable at any time to make contact with Miss Vallow, and nobody had called the police department stating their Jeep was missing either.
So you never received a call from Lori Vallow to report her Jeep stolen?
No.
Never got a call from Alex Cox saying a Jeep was stolen?
No.
So you have the Jeep on the 4th of November. Do you coordinate with the Gilbert Police Department for them to come to Rexburg, Idaho to be able to process the Jeep?
Damning? I think so. If your Jeep or your brother's Jeep is suddenly just gone and you say nothing about it, the police can't reach you, and you don't ever reach out to them, that's weird. Okay, so this next one with Hermosillo absolutely cracked me up, because here we are talking about when he came to talk to them later in November. Notice how she talks about it, because at this point, Chad and Lori are married, but they aren't telling anyone that. Hermosillo knows they're married, but she doesn't. They're unaware that he has this insider information. He also knows that children are missing. Now, the jury is not allowed to know any of this at this point. None of it. And he is there on surveillance because the children are missing, not just because of the Jeep anymore, not just because of Brandon's situation, because of the children. Okay, so with that in mind, let's watch notice how she goes, he pauses for just a second.
When you were working with the Gilbert Police Department, you told us that you had done some surveillance from November 1st until you recovered the Jeep on November 4th. Later in November, did you have some additional time to do surveillance at the 565 Pioneer Road, specifically November 26th?
Yes, we did.
On November 26th, did you have contact with a person by the name of Chad Daybell?
Yes, I did.
On November 26th of 2019, who did you understand that to be in relation to Lori Vallow?
Lori's current husband.
Again, no mention that Lori didn't know he knew that, and that it was brand new.
Anyone with Chad Daybell when you saw him on November 26th?
It was also Lori's brother, Alex Cox, that was with Chad Daybell at that time.
Can you describe for us the circumstance you saw these two?
Okay, this is the part that I was dying at. Can you describe the circumstances? Like, okay, I just watch his face in a second. There's this moment where he's like, okay, I can't talk about the kids being missing in that investigation. That's why I was there. How do I answer this? And then she clarifies.
Can you describe for us the circumstance you saw these two for 26th? Where were they? Were they around a vehicle, around a townhome?
So when we made contact with Chad, and Alex, they were unloading Alex's pickup truck, unloading items from the back of it into the garage of apartment 175.
That's what he says. He's in the gold Ford F-150. State finishes their direct examination of Hermosillo, and Lori has the opportunity to cross-examine him.
No questions, Your Honor.
Any questions for this witness from any member of the jury?
Your Honor, her little breathy voice, but also I think her breathiness there was an attempt to hide her nerves because I think she is genuinely scared of Hermosillo. It's thanks to a lot of his work and his tenaciousness that he got her. He got her, and he was listed in her mind on that list of dark people who'd been possessed by evil spirits and likely had a hit out for him and his family, which was terrifying. And that was the end of day 4. With no cross of Hermosillo. Day 5, we get a whole bunch of other interesting stuff here. It was entirely Nick Balance, who is a member of a cast evidence team, a cellular analysis something or other team. He's a special agent with the FBI, has all this experience. I believe he said since 2019. I've heard other years earlier, but I think he said 2019 on the stand. But he did a really great job of laying out how all of this analysis works on very basic terms that we would understand. A lot of it, if you watch the Idaho trials, he explained it in very similar terms. He used a couple of Arizona cities as examples instead of Idaho cities, which is a smart considering your audience. But he goes into cell towers versus Google location things and so many different stuff. So much of it. We weren't allowed to see his face because he does undercover work. So he asked that his face not be shown. But we weren't also allowed to see the charts and diagrams that he had up, which would have been very helpful because what we are hearing as just the public through the stream is so the something is Treena K is listing off the 4 digits of all these different phone numbers and the times of days and dates and locations, and it became soup in my head after a while, and I literally had to write it all down, just one snippet of my notebook. So for day 4, I had 2 pages that I took of notes. Day 5, it's like 10 plus. It got to be just crazy as I'm trying to write down times and dates and people and this and that. I finally just had to write down all of the 4 digits, the last 4 of all these different phone numbers and who they're connected to. So we have Lori's, Chad, Melanie's, and then Al, who had 2. He had his normal phone, which he left in Idaho, thinking that would be his alibi. And then the track phone, which he brought with him to Arizona, only used for those couple of days and tossed once he got to Utah on the way back. But yeah, I'm like, okay, so you can see at the bottom there at 2:20 to 2:22. Anyway, it's like Lori's phone is here, and over here it's 8:13 p.m. in Utah time, and Chad's doing that. Anyway, it was a lot if you didn't get to see the charts in court, which we did not. So that was frustrating, but that's just the way it had to be. So let's watch what we did get to see and hear of the cast information.
Spoke about the Walmart, I don't know what page that is, but you were showing that according to Google, is that correct, that a phone associated with me and a phone associated with Alex were in that Walmart shopping center? Is that
So
correct?
I think you're talking about page 16. So there's 2 different pages associated with that statement. The first one is the 9120 phone reporting its location to Google, and that's where you can see multiple locations consistent with being at that Walmart in Idaho Falls. The page following that is looking at the phone associated with you that was utilizing a tower and sector that would provide coverage to the general area of that Walmart. So,
And just as we go through some of this, you'll see just how much she does not understand the technology that he just explained. And she's trying to poke holes where there are none to be poked, because she's just that clueless.
it's two different, basically, versions of records that are providing two different estimates as to where those two phones were.
Because one is a phone call, so it has an outgoing tower. Is that correct?
So one is looking at the Verizon network, and so it's utilizing that specific tower and sector for that. I can't remember whether it was an incoming or an outgoing call. Whereas the Google location, that's information that that phone is reporting from either GPS or Wi-Fi to Google as where it's located during that same time period.
Okay, so I cannot tell you how many times he had to explain that the Verizon's call detail records from the cell phone towers are not the same thing as Google's location records. She's conflating two different kinds of records. Like this happened several times.
So could it connect to Walmart Wi-Fi? Is that?
I get it, so not the point. He had explained that a phone has a better location accuracy if Wi-Fi is turned on, not because it's actually connecting to any Wi-Fi, but your phone will even notify you sometimes if you have that setting on. And there's this network nearby. Would you like to connect? And you can say, what are the connections nearby? And it will find which ones and tell you which ones are open or not. That just means your phone is like noticing them. And that information, the fact that your phone noticed them, goes to Google. And Google can go, oh, I know where that Walmart is. I know where that McDonald's is. I can tell where you are. It has nothing to do with actually connecting to anyone's Wi-Fi. And she doesn't get that.
Does Walmart have a Wi-Fi?
So it wouldn't need to. If Walmart had a Wi-Fi, it doesn't necessarily need to connect to it. It just needs to see it, because when the phone takes a measurement and sees that it's has a certain signal strength from that Walmart Wi-Fi, then it is able to estimate where that phone is, because Google knows where that particular Wi-Fi hotspot is located.
Do you have the ability to track someone walking around in a Walmart?
I mean, if you looked at the Google...
Here's the frustration in his voice. That poor guy. Like, Laura, you're so stupid. Just stop.
If you're looking historically and you wanted to see, like, did an individual go to a particular aisle in Walmart, I think that would be a stretch, unless it's a very big Walmart and you're just trying to see whether they were in landscaping or over on the grocery side. It all depends on the information that you have in that record from Google. So if those margins of error are super small, you could potentially estimate that, but it really would just depend on the record that you have specific to the device that you're trying to locate.
And if you had the actual device, could you pinpoint that more accurately?
Again, it would depend on the device and what apps you're running on the device. And
she doesn't understand any of this. He tries to explain over and over, it depends on what data you have. It depends on what the record is. If I don't have Google Maps on my phone, if I don't have location services turned on at all, if I'm not using Waze or whatever else, and it's not then noticing those Wi-Fi possible connection networks, whatever, then no, having my phone device is not going to be any more helpful than getting the Google records or the Verizon records or what. But she's not grasping. She and Chad and Al thought they were so smart they could get away with all of this, but there's cluelessness on how the technology works is what finally got them into so much trouble, including the fact that Alex left his phone in Idaho, had that burner phone with him the whole time, but he's using his Google account on the burner. Duh. We know it's you. You freaking idiot.
What all is being potentially stored. So different phones have different ways that they store information. They have different GPS chips inside of them. Apps have different ways that they store information. And so it would really just depend on getting that phone, doing a forensic download of that phone, and seeing what you have.
Compare that to the Google information that you got and have a much more accurate picture.
I wouldn't say you would always have a more accurate picture because you might not have any records that you might do a forensic download and you're not able to pull out any location information. I would say that it's always better to have more information to do that comparison, but it's not a guarantee that it's going to make it better by having the forensic download of the phone.
Because you don't know what data is on the phone. You might not have anything that's usable. Lori.
So it would be more accurate as far as locations from Google?
No.
I wouldn't say it'd be more accurate. It's just, it's a different record, you know? So if you have a Google location record that has a significant number of locations, they're all 2-3 meter hits because you were potentially standing outside, that's going to be pretty precise. But it really just depends because you don't know what that record's going to look like until you get it and you review it.
So if you don't have your location on, are you able to track where things are?
The reason why she is just harping on this Walmart thing is because that's where the burner phone was purchased. And she was clearly there with Alex when it was purchased. And that Walmart is in Idaho Falls, which is a significant drive from Rexburg. So what is she doing at that Walmart with Alex? And then she's calling Melanie, who apparently was at the Walmart too. They're probably split up at some point, but there's phone calls between her and Melanie while the three of them are at Walmart in Idaho Falls, which is far from Rexburg. Not far, but it's you'd have to go there on purpose to try to evade the police. And the burner phone was purchased in with cash. Then there are other stupid things that connected Alex to the crime scene. Like there was a receipt in the Jeep for a fast food place that he had got food at in Arizona during the time of when he would have been in Arizona to off Brandon, and he didn't remove it. Like, your alibi is shot, dude. We can play more of that. I won't bother. It's painful. It's just word salad half the time. At one point, she even goes off about some weird thing about, oh, if you were to give your phone to a teenager and they went to an amusement park and went on all these rides, it would look like, anyway, it was a scrambled way. He finally actually said, could you rephrase the question? And it finally came out that she was trying to say, if someone else has your phone, you can't tell. You're looking for a device. All you can tell is where the device is, which is what we've all known. And he actually had already said, yes, we are identifying a device. Obviously, we can't tell if the person associated with the device, the person's phone number means that person is holding the phone at that time. But we have so much other evidence showing that Lori was aware all these different things were happening. So as we started going through all of that evidence, it was damning. I mean, they're on Lori's device. There are searches like, how do I take out the back seat of my Jeep? And then we actually learned, this was new, the storage, we saw a lot of the storage unit footage. That was during much of Hermosillo's testimony from the day before. But previously, it looked like the storage unit, we saw the tire going in and then coming back out the next day. The first day, it looked like, I think it was just Alex and maybe Chad, but that when they come to get it out, then it's Lori. Lori is for sure there when they're taking it out. And that was significant because how do you explain her knowledge of needing to get the Jeep tire and the bench back out quickly if she isn't aware of the whole Brandon conspiracy? That was damning right there. But in past shots or clips that we have seen, it looked like they were carrying a tote when it was actually the back bench of the Jeep. We know that now. So she's then doing so how do I remove it? Tutorial YouTube. How do I get it off? Get my bench out of my Jeep. That was significant. She got some more of her word salad with Nick Balance was all about not understanding degrees on the sectors of cell phone towers and conflating degrees on, because we have how many degrees in a circle, then there's 3 sectors per cell phone tower, if I recall correctly, and how many degrees each one of those is. And she was conflating that with a margin of error of meters that Google could do with location, which is not even almost the same thing. The sector and the tower, it's like which sector of which tower connected with the phone at what time was it, and for what? Was it a text message, outgoing call, whatever? That has nothing to do with actually identifying that spot on the ground you were standing. That's what Google does. They're measuring completely different things, and she just doesn't grasp that at all. Then, of course, the Wi-Fi thing. Oh, but if you're not connecting to Walmart's Wi-Fi, he had already explained it, had to explain it again. Her utter cluelessness. And the state rested. I sat there and I looked at my notes with all these things were lining up with an attempted alibi with Alex, phone calls that were happening during the window when he would have been down there clearly, and then also between Melanie and Lori, and then Chad and Al, all during the time, the window where Brandon was being killed, or they were trying to off him. There were so many things proving where Alex was, that Lori was involved, that she must have known this, that she was calling this person and that person. And I looked at my crazy notes that I had finally cobbled together and went, she did it. Treena K did it. She connected the dots. And then in her closing argument, she connected them even further. And she pointed out some of the connections I had made, but not even all of them. And I'm sure the jury connected even more of the dots, because you could actually see the phone numbers clearly as to what they meant and figure out, oh, on this date at this time, that was when Brandon had dropped off the kids and he went to the gym, and, because they're just listing off times and dates, and it got confusing without being able to grab onto it. But when I just looked at all that, I was like, she did it. I think we'll get a guilty verdict. After day 3, like I said, I was worried. Day 4, I was like, okay, we're getting there. We're getting close. I'm seeing a lot of things that the jury could probably say yes on. Yes, she's guilty. By day 5, like, it's in the bag. She's got it. She's got it. We're good. I almost immediately had closing arguments. I had a break. As usual, Lori put out her whole the Rule 20 statement, and that you do this in almost every trial. Defense lawyers will do it just as a matter of course. If you don't, it's actually possibly an appeal issue. So basically stating the state they have the burden of proof for all of the elements, and the only thing that they've proven is that I rented a storage unit and a phone call I was connected to happened to be in an area that whatever. And therefore that there hasn't been proven, and you should just throw the case out. And if there were no evidence whatsoever, the idea is that the judge could throw out a case if no reasonable jury could convict based on what's been proposed. It almost never works. I think I've seen one true crime case ever that I've ever come across where it did work, and it was actually kind of shocking and horrifying to the victim's family, because they felt there was plenty of evidence. But I only heard that happening, so rarely. And of course, in this case, the judge was like, all right, you did your thing, moving on. One thing that kind of made me go, huh, on this is that right at the end, she says that she wanted to make sure that a letter from Tammy was entered into the record. Apparently, it wasn't going to be entered for the jury, but it was going to be entered to the record. I'm deeply curious as to what the heck that means. A letter from Tammy. Literally from Tammy? To whom? Was it an email? Was this like Lori in prison channeling, supposedly in her brain, the spirit of Tammy telling her, oh, I forgive you, you're my friend, blah, blah, all the other horrible, offensive crap. They didn't elaborate, but I'm just deeply curious. If anybody knows, let me know, because I would love to know. They did their closing arguments, like I said. Treena K did a great job connecting all of those dots. I was cheering by the end. She's our other hero in this. I just, frankly, after watching all of these trials, we've had 4 so far, 3 for Lori and just the one for Chad. If heaven forbid, there's something that I'm ever have to defend myself in, bring in Lindsay Blake from Idaho or Treena K from Arizona. I would trust those women with my life, because they need to know how to lawyer. Let's just put it that way. So those by the end of day 4 and 5, we had it in the bag. I was quite confident. And so the things that I was noticing that I'm like, oh, I think the jury, that might help the jury, I called a lot of it. Because as you likely know, we did get a guilty verdict. The jury spent like 15 minutes deliberating that first day. Basically like, okay, let's go home and sleep on it. We'll come back tomorrow. And then the next day, within like half an hour, they had a verdict, which probably means we all think she did it, right? Let's vote. Or actually probably first off, vote for a 4-person, do a vote, go through with that, whatever paperwork, read the instructions again, sign it off. I mean, there wasn't not much more time to do anything else. So to me, that is such a good sign in the bag. I'll do another video soon about the verdict itself, some of the reactions to it. Brandon's amazing statement after, which I've watched a couple of times and has brought me to tears. And I'll also show the actual verdict because for some reason the streaming broke down right then and we couldn't hear the actual verdict. I was like, are you kidding me? So we'll show you that. Let me know what you think with all of this. Make sure you like and subscribe, especially if you're new. Oh, and also if you've been watching for a while and thought you were subscribed and maybe you weren't, please do that. Leave us a comment as well. Let me know what you think about this entire case and where you think it's going next. We've learned in this case that there is an open and active investigation into Melanie Boudreau, now Pulaski. I am so hoping charges will be filed. Now that we have Lori in the bag, we have Chad in the bag, I hope Melanie gets charged and convicted, put behind bars, and that Brandon can get full custody of his children forevermore. Those children were listed as dark on those lists. And I think if they hadn't been caught when they were, Lori and Chad would have offed them too. Thank heavens that didn't happen. Thank heavens they were caught before they could try Brandon again, before Melanie's kids could be taken out. They are not safe with Melanie, in my opinion. So let's hope that they can actually do that. I would love for that to happen. But this is the last case, as far as we know, for Lori, unless they can find a way to charge her in Joe's death, which I doubt because there's just not the evidence, even though I think we all know she probably had something to do with it. But that is that. Again, leave me comments. Let me know what you think. If you don't have a direct comment, leave some chocolate emojis or your comfort food of choice. And until next time, go get yourself some chocolate. I know I will.